Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. I think we're going to get my slides up on the screen in just a moment here. So welcome. I've been really enjoying the morning so far, and the music on the break was great too. Yeah, we'll get the thank you for my helpers on this, someone who's getting the slides up. So I'm excited to be here today. We're going to talk more about social health. It follows so well from what we've been talking about so far this morning, and the title, A Matter of Life and Death, a dramatic title, and yet really, I think, underscores how important social health is for our overall well-being. So we'll go to the next slide. I just have one or two quick questions just before we jump in. And so maybe I can see everybody's been really great on the chat so far. So I invite you just to put in the chat a word or two if you'd like to. What motivated you to join, to come to the Wellness Fair today? Maybe you were also on yesterday and you're going to continue for the rest of the week. A word or two. Why did you join the Wellness Fair? Was it to learn some new things? Maybe a particular topic that you're interested in, and you're welcome to put it in the chat. We're just going to spend a moment or two here. It's been a bit of a warm up for our session, and then we'll jump into the social health screener part. All right, I'll leave that with you if anyone wants to pop something in, and we'll jump right to the next slide. I want to make sure we keep moving through. There we go. Thanks, everybody. So we're going to put a poll on in a moment, but this is another one, and just again in line of what we've been talking about, a quick check-in on your kind of how you interact in the day. So I think we've got a poll question here. It's about how often do you talk to people on the street on an average day? So imagine you're out there doing your errands, maybe waiting in line at the bank or at the grocery store in the community. So if you can see that poll question, we're going to be using poll questions quite a bit in the session today. So this is just a little bit of a practice so everybody can see how it works. I think it's open. You can take your mouse or click or however you navigate on the screen here and select one of the four options, right? An average day. Is it never? Do you talk to someone on the street once or twice if you know them? Several times? Or I talk to dozens of people every day. And I'm not sure, I can't see how many of you have answered, but if someone or Zoya, if it looks like we've got some good answers, go ahead and share out the poll.
Yep, I'll just give everyone another 30 seconds.
Another couple of seconds. All right. Think about how you interact when you're out there on an average day. I'd have to think about myself. I'd probably say at least once or twice. I'm getting better than that. When I was in my 20s or so, I was very shy and never talked to anybody that I don't know. But now that I'm an empty nester, my son is going to university, and if I don't talk to someone out at the store, I might not talk to anyone else all day. So I try to say hello. Here we go. Let's have a look. Oh, there we are. So out of the group that responded, a little less than 10% never, but in the middle, pretty good, 30% or so once or twice, and a big chunk of you several times a day, and a few of you doesn't. So that's wonderful. A little bit of a check-in. Thank you so much. Let's close that and jump right into our presentation. Thank you for warming us up today. So I'm going to continue on this topic. That's what we're here for, focusing on today, the whole morning, social health. So I'm just going to go through this slide a few more, and then we'll get into the interactive part where you'll have a chance to do some more poll questions. So let's just consider for a moment together, what does social health really mean? And what contributes to our own social health versus, for example, our physical or our mental health? And it's really, as we've talked about how we interact, how we feel connected to others. And let's think about it on three dimensions. They're here on the slide. So the first one is how we connect to people. We know, and we heard from some of the statistics that Zoya talked about, that it's really important to have our own sort of circle of care and support. Doesn't need to be 100 friends, but one or two people in our life that are around us, whether it's family, a neighbor, a friend from long ago, or a friend that you've made recently. These people are our connection to the world, and they provide us with support in times of need, in good days and bad days. The second dimension is community. Think about how you connect or interact with the community around you, perhaps the building or the neighborhood where you live, and again, how you interact when you go out into that community. Taking part in activities, for example. We know that people who know their neighbors, who are involved with their community, know their community, feel a sense of belonging, that they can reach out to others to go for help. And also an opportunity for people to use their skills and talents to maybe help and support others. If you're an individual who can maybe pop out and get a neighbor who's feeling not well, pick up something at the store for them. That's part of our being connected to our community. And the third dimension, this idea of being having a life purpose, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. So that feeling of having, knowing what is meaningful in your life. And we know that people go through major life changes, sometimes really difficult life changes, for example, experiencing a personal loss or moving to a new environment. And it's important at those times, especially when we go through those changes, to think about what does that quality of life mean, and how can we set goals to achieve that? Reach out, ask others for help when we need it. It's a tough thing to do because for many of us in sort of the North America mindset, it's a bit of, we'll just, tough our way through a hard period in our life. But it really is important for all of us to reach out to others. And overall, a sense of well-being does come from a sense of purpose. And sometimes that can be through helping others, building a feeling of self-esteem and thinking that you've got something to offer, some goals and things to look forward to. Thank you. Let's move to the next one. Oh, we'll move that one around. Here we go. So these are a few statistics, thank you, that were shared earlier. And that one, first of all, a pretty big proportion of seniors, 43, almost half of seniors do admit feeling lonely on a regular basis. So if you put yourself in that category, you're not alone on that. But the point of today is to recognize those feelings and what can we do to take actions. We know that there's a increase in bad health outcomes for those who feel lonely. And that statistic, you've heard it before earlier today, but that's the one that really sticks out to me, that loneliness is actually more dangerous to our health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So let's keep that in mind and we'll move right along. Thank you. So this idea of being lonely, at risk, that has poor outcomes for our health, well, we all have ups and downs in our life and changes, but at certain times, based on certain factors, we are more at risk for feeling lonely or isolated. So take a minute to look through this list, see if any of these jump out to you, if there are things that you've experienced. So I'll just pull out a few of them: being older, being a caregiver, caring for perhaps a spouse or a family member, being bereaved, having a personal loss, poor health or new diagnosis, moving, losing some of the freedoms or the abilities that you had, such as no longer driving or changes to hearing or sight, having a disability, not seeing family and friends as often. And I would add to that list having endured 2+ years of the COVID pandemic, a big change for all of us and put all of us at risk for, going through long lockdowns, at risk for feeling more lonely and isolated. So just keep in mind, it can be tempting when we go through some of the things on this list to want to retreat, sit on the couch, turn on the TV, not go out and interact with others. But that idea of let's just recognize when we're at risk and then think about how we can take steps to move forward. Okay, and also think about others. It may not be that you're experiencing some of these, but maybe you've got a friend or neighbor or family member, and you can recognize that they're going through perhaps a tough time and reach out to support them. Okay, thank you. Next one. All right, and just a quick one with the idea that really knowledge is power. So a big part of today, and as we go through the questions together in a minute, that gives us a chance to learn and assess where we are, how to rate our own social isolation or social health, and then take steps to address that. And it's not a one-time thing. We repeat and repeat as different things change in our own life experience. Okay. So just one more here. What is a health screener? Well, think about this idea of preventative medicine, taking steps before something happens or trying to catch something early. So we're maybe familiar with common medical screeners. It could be everything from checking your blood pressure to some standard cancer screenings that take place at different life milestones. So it's an important part of our healthcare system already to recognize things or catch things early before they become problems. And it can be a trigger to ask some questions, to explore options, take action. We are in a minute going to ask you a series of 7 questions, which is part of what we're calling the social health screener. Check in how you're doing socially. We now know that it has a huge impact on your health. And if you click one more time, I think we've got a sentence at the bottom here that is just really, really, as we've been hearing all morning, so important for both our physical and mental health and our overall quality of life, to recognize and then take steps to improve our interactions, improve our social health. And just in terms of why it's so important, as we keep saying, there's so many negative impacts to our health if we are feeling lonely and isolated, but we've got the opportunity to do this check-in this morning and to take some steps to move forward if that's something we're concerned about. So I think, without further ado, let's jump in. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to start a series of questions. Just before we do the first poll here, just want to let you know that your answers are confidential, not going to be shared. That's the way it works on Zoom, so you can feel, I think, hopefully comfortable to check in with yourself and answer as honestly and as openly as you can moving forward. And we'll give you a couple of options towards the end of this session to just see if you want any further feedback based on these questions. Okay. So I did that first part fairly quickly, but I just want to pause here so we give you all a chance to answer the poll. So here's question 1. First thing, this is an easy one. How many people do you live with? Either live alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, and here it is on the slides. Take a minute to click the one that represents your situation. Right. I'll give you a moment to find the poll on your screen. Pick one of those answers. And as with all of the questions in the screener, just again, be reflecting for a moment on what they all mean as you put them together. If you live alone, that is, again, an opportunity to say, well, I don't talk to other people as often, so maybe there's a chance to get out and interact some more. Okay, great. We're going to share the answers to that one as we go through. Let's see what we've got. Terrific. Okay, so for today, our group on our session today, about almost a third living alone. 45% live with one other person, and then a few have others in their household. So thank you very much. It gives us a little bit of a picture of where we are today in our group. And we'll go to question number 2. Okay. So this question, do you participate in community activities as much as you would like? And there's a little picture here. It might be small, but it could be everything from, again, meeting with a friend, taking a class, whether it's something like exercise, getting together with a friend to play bingo or do a jigsaw puzzle, gardening, calling someone on the phone, doing a dance class, art or painting, swimming, volunteering. All those types of things would be some of the community activities. So do you participate in them as much as you would like? Yes or no? We do recognize that, especially over the last 2 years with COVID, many of these exercises, were shut down. So even if you wanted to, you didn't have the opportunity. We certainly recognize that. Okay. Now let's see. Okay, well, sort of in the middle here. So yes, 45, but more people chose the no option. And again, we recognize that many of these have been on hold or on pause due to COVID. But are coming back. Thank you. Let's move to the next one. Question number 3. Here we go. One of these scale of 1 to 10. So we're asking you to reflect, take a moment to think how you're feeling. It's a big question. How do you feel about your life as a whole right now, today? Where 1 is very, very low, very dissatisfied, and 10 is wonderful, excellent, very satisfied. So take a moment to have a look on that. How do you feel about your life as a whole right now? Could be today, this week. 1 is very, very low, very bad. 10 would be as good as it. Wonderful. Very satisfied. And once you've all had a chance to do that, yeah, we'll share it out. Thank you for my helpers on all the slides and the polling questions. Let's see how we do. This is a tough one, and it can very much vary with the day, right? You can have a day where, feeling all right. The sun is out. I woke up and not feeling too much pain today. And then there are days that we just know are not great days. So I just invite you to reflect on that and pick the number that seems to work for you. And we'll see how people are doing on this one in a moment. Yeah, I think I vary somewhere. Well, I have certain days. November is a tough month. I've got to admit, November I find hard. It gets very dark. The leaves have fallen down. Let's see how we're doing. We're going to share that out. Okay. So we have a few that put 1, right? And that's a little bit of a note to people that were on the lower end of the scale, where 1 is very dissatisfied, right? Not feeling great about things in your life right now. And I appreciate those of you that were that selected that one. A few in the middle, some 3s, some 5s, 6, 7s. Do we have any? I'll scroll down here. Oh, some at 8, about just over a third are up at the 8, and some even pick 9 and 10. But quite a wide range overall. This is, again, a very personal choice or reflection today, so thank you for your honesty to share that. Okay, let's go to the next one. We've got a few more here. How would you describe your sense of belonging to your local community? You know, again, are you participating in activities? Are you meeting others? Are you going out and saying hello to people on the street? Your community could be, if you're in an apartment building, could be the neighbors on your floor. It could be the shopkeepers and places that you visit. Do you stop somewhere for coffee? Are you engaged in some activities, know some other people? So how would you describe your sense of belonging to your community, from very strong all the way down to very weak? Give you a minute on that one. And let's see how everybody did. Okay, interesting as well. Thank you, everyone. So some people picking very strong, which is great. There's some somewhat strong and somewhat weak, kind of there, and a few very weak. Again, each question of these helps build, this is your check-in, your personal screener, how you're feeling. You sort of want to put all those questions together. Excellent. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Let's move on to question 5. So this one, how often do you feel that you lack companionship? Or another way to think about it is, those relationships, do you lack relationships with family, with friends, with neighbors? You know, someone that you can call up and say, hey, let's have a cup of tea together, or have a chat on the phone. How often do you feel that you lack that kind of companionship? Hardly ever, sometimes, or some of you may choose or say quite often that you feel you lack companionship. Right. And I think it was Zoya who mentioned at the beginning, or maybe Patricia, that, you know, some of these questions really do bring up quite a bit of feeling and emotion for each of us, to be honest enough to say, you know, I don't feel that I've got someone I can reach out to call. And putting it up on a slide like this can really trigger some of those emotions. So I do encourage each of you just to take a few deep breaths and thank you for your honesty. And as we do have time for some questions and some debriefing and some sharing at the end of this, and I'm so encouraged that you're all here today to take a step forward to being interactive and reaching out to others. Terrific. So we've got a little bit in the middle. So about half of you said sometimes, and then the other hardly ever and often are about the same. So thank you for that. Let's go to the next one. We've got a couple more here. A little bit similar, but this one is, how often do you feel left out? So this can be more of a feeling of, hey, I see a group of people that are going for a walk and I maybe kind of like to join them. I know a few of them, but I just am feeling a bit left out. Or I know there's an exercise class that happens at the community center, but I don't really feel like that. So how often do you feel left out? Again, the same response options, hardly ever, sometimes, or often. Not part of the group. You know, it's something that stays with us throughout our whole life, back from elementary school, high school, that feeling of not quite being part of the group. And I always thought when I was a teenager that that would change, but here I am in my late 50s and we can still have those strong feelings as well. Not quite feeling part of the group. Let's see how everybody's doing. Okay, so about a third of you, almost 30% hardly ever, but quite a few in the middle sometimes, and a few of you saying often. Thanks, everyone. It is helpful just to get a sense of this check-in, how everyone's doing. Okay, and I think that takes us to question 7. That's our last one in the screener. How often do you feel isolated from others? A little bit different than that left out question. So a bit more on this idea of being physically separated. So perhaps for those of you that live on your own, I'm an empty nester myself. My son has gone to university, so now it's me and my dog. And yes, I talk to my dog a lot. So it's more that idea of feeling, sort of physically separated. At home, it's just me, no one else in the background to say hello to. How often do you feel isolated from others? I'll give you a moment on this one. Oops, we'll click there in the background. Great, we're almost through this one. And we'll share it out for everyone in a moment. Here we go. Okay, so how often do you feel isolated, physically separated? Hardly ever, about 45%, sometimes and often. Would put those two together would be more than half of you. And again, certainly COVID did not help, right? This idea when we were actually in a lockdown and told not to go out of our apartment, not to leave for our own health and safety, certainly didn't help that feeling of being isolated. So we can close that one. Thank you everyone so much for participating in that screener. We're not quite done yet. The questions are finished. So you've now finished rating your own social health. That's a social health screener as we talked about before. So I just want to talk a little bit about this idea of what we can do following our self-rating, our sort of quality of life based on that screener, and talk a bit about this idea of community connectors. So certain organizations, so I'm here today representing the Canadian Red Cross. We are doing a small pilot project in North York area. I'll talk more about that in just a moment, as well as our partners hosting the Wellness Fair this week, Health Commons, have people that work as trained volunteers who can help, in this case, older adults, take that results of the screener and take some steps, take action, move forward, have some conversations to sort of debrief a little bit more, help people do some goal planning, goal setting. If today has opened your eyes a little bit to, yeah, I am feeling lonely and isolated. And boy, I've heard some of the statistics that really is not good for my health. Sometimes we think about poor physical and mental health triggers your poor social health. But today, let's flip that around and talk about if the answers to those 7 questions made you consider your own social health needs a little bit of an update, then that also triggers poor physical and mental health. So we do have some opportunities for community connectors who can help people reflect more on the quality of life, set some goals, just going through what's on the slide here, identify resources. Find ways to see what's happening in your neighborhood, maybe try something new, an activity, meet new people, and sort of keep track of the connections made and then address at a certain point of time. And it could be something as simple as, I want to join a book club online or in person, and that's going to be something nice that I can look forward to once a week or once a month. Okay, so we'll move to the next one. Thanks, everybody. And I hope someone will give me an indication if I'm getting near the end of my time here. A little bit of give me a 5 or 10 minute warning. So again, just based on your own results, I want to point out that for some of you, you might feel, based on what I just mentioned, that you'd benefit from a bit of a conversation with a community connector to help address some of those concerns you have about your social health. So we've got 2 phone numbers here on the slide, and let me just explain a little bit about them. The first one is our part of the Health Commons network, the Windsor Essex Compassion Care. Yep. that WECCC. You're welcome to jot down that number, but I just will mention to you that that's for folks, I think it's within the Ontario geography. So some of people are joining us from other parts of the world. This one community support center is for people in Ontario. And there may be a couple of you, I know I recognized a few faces and names. If you are a resident of 3174 Bathurst Street, you're welcome to call the number, the Red Cross number. In fact, that is my number. You will reach me, Alex from the Red Cross. We're doing a targeted pilot project for this building right now to work intensively on the one building. We do plan to expand it further through North York, but that's where we are right now. And if you click the slide one more time here, I think that will just pop in the extra paragraphs down the bottom. We do one more option for you. We'll do one more poll in a minute. So just let me read out what's on the slide. If you agree to be contacted in the future to receive your own private confidential results of the neighbor's social health screen of those 7 questions we did, along with some resources, we'll put up a slide here. If you say yes, oh, and thank you. Again, we have a way, I think it's the magic of Zoom, we'll be able to identify who said yes here and reach out following the session. And Zohar's put in the chat that the phone numbers will be in the information package that you receive afterwards. And there's an email there as well. So you can answer yes or no. I want to keep an eye on my time because I just we'll open up our microphones in a minute. Hopefully we've got a few minutes for a little bit of interaction here. So I'll leave that with you, the yes or the no. Thanks, everybody. And whether or not you reach out with a phone number or pick the yes or the no, I do encourage you just to take a few minutes to reflect on how you answered those 7 questions and use that as a little temperature check, right? If it made you think, boy, I am not talking to people or interacting that much these days, I maybe want to put a little goal for myself, particularly as we come through the winter. To think about what are some small steps I might want to take. Reach out to a neighbor, say hello to someone. Sometimes it takes being a little bit brave to say, boy, it's been lonely around here. Maybe a couple of us can get together and have a tea or coffee once a week. It can be as simple as that. So once we've had a chance to answer that last poll, the yes or the no, I don't think we need to share that one out, but we can move along. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll go to the next slide and we'll just click. Hopefully we've got a few minutes here at the end to anybody who wants to come off mute or put in the chat. Because this idea of at the top here, motivation, it's all well and good to say, I am feeling a bit lonely and isolated and I really should get involved, but that's tough to do. So for a moment, I'm curious to know, for those of you that are interacting with your community, you know, what types of things you're doing, and you can pop it in the chat if you're joined an art class or you're doing online exercise. Yeah, some Zoom, that's great. And in the interest of time, I'm going to, as you put those in the chat, I'm going to move to number 2. And if you click 1 or 2 more times, we got 2A and 2B. There we go. We'll pause there for a moment. So still on question 2, for those of you that are participating in, it might be a Zoom exercise class or a drawing session or art session. What got you started and what keeps you motivated? And again, if someone wants to come off mute, I'd love to hear some other voices or put something in the chat. Oh, great. Zoom exercises with Circle of Care. That's fabulous. And what was it that got someone started? Was it thinking, boy, I have not been exercising enough. I got to take the step forward. Was it the exercise? Was it a chance to have a bit of a social activity on your Zoom calendar? I'm curious to know. Yeah, that's okay. I know some of you got some appointments. And just in our final few moments, I would love to hear a bit about what keeps people motivated. So sometimes you have great intentions to start a class, maybe a series of 4 or 6 exercise classes, and you join one, but what gets you motivated to come back? All right, another Circle of Care, terrific. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I know some of you got to take off. That's it. How about this idea of support? I don't know about the rest of you, but I sometimes need a little bit of a support or a nudge to get me going to try something new. What are some ideas about types of support? Is it having a friend to go with for that first activity? Maybe it's things like just the information. Boy, it's an in-person exercise class. I've been doing it all by Zoom. I'm going to have to actually think of what to wear or how to get there. Maybe it's a matter of figuring out how to take a bus somewhere. So I want to think about that. And we can put up the last couple on the slide there, Simon, if you want. I think if you click, we've got 3 and 4 and 5. And what about some of the barriers? I'd love to hear from even one person, because it's not as easy as it sounds. Start something new, try something new. It can be tough. Anyone ideas on what are some barriers to accessing programs or activities in your community? Anyone? Oh, I see walking groups. Oh, French classes, I'm looking at the chat too. Language can be a barrier, absolutely, right? So, you know, our wonderfully diverse neighborhood in North York, we have many different languages and backgrounds represented, but that can be absolutely a barrier. And the last one I'll just leave with you is maybe something to ponder. So we mentioned that we've got volunteer community connectors that do support people to start and continue new programs and activities. So if anyone had any thoughts, let's say, not even for yourself, it might be just how could volunteers support other older adults? Is it, again, a friendly phone call once a week or a nudge to say, hey, it's time for exercise, or let's go for a walk? Any ideas there? I'd love to hear. Oh, I like that, Mariana. I don't like anything prevent me to join things. Wonderful, great attitude. I like that a lot. Sometimes, again, it's just a matter of, how about I just try it one time, just a little something new, just give it a try. So that's what I hope that we can leave you with just as we get near the end of this session, that it's so important to do that check-in. How am I doing? Am I interacting with others? And if I don't feel I'm interacting with others as much as I need to, what are some steps that I can do to make a little change? It doesn't have to be huge all the time. So I'll pause there. I think we're near the end. Thank you everyone for participating in the polls. Appreciate your honesty. And do feel free to reach out when you get that information package at the end with the phone numbers and the other supports that are there. Thank you, everyone.
And